Hi everyone, this is Kamiyoko. So this tutorial is about how do I transform a grayscale image to a colored final artwork. So you can look at here as I have this grayscale already painted work finished, and I'm using this brush, which you can fully adjust in the brush adjustment just by using default Photoshop brush. This one right here. And turn on your dual and transfer. Or you can also get the brush that I adjusted from my Gumroad. And because I solely use this brush to paint most of my painting, it doesn't look like that really clean and neat. Works probably except the blade. So the overall looks pretty rough. So now you're gonna wonder, why do I add those lighting adjustment on top of my grayscale painting? And if I hide those lighting adjustment, you'll see the original painting is much lighter, the overall light. It's all because, I explained it in my other tutorial, is because the light, the saturated color you see will be always darker in the lighting value. Like, for example, there's a little test I did here. So if I have saturated red, and what happened if I desaturated it? Well, it's not gonna to be this white in the middle, which typically rationally we all think it's probably gonna be this white. Actually, it is this kind of gray in the far left. So you have this saturated red color, and when it's desaturated, it's not gonna be as this lighter tone in the middle. It's gonna be this, darker gray in grayscale mode. So how did I come up with this monster type of goddess? Well, it was actually for a context several years ago. My idea was doing a Tibetan god, and this rock hand symbol you see is actually Buddha's hand symbol. It's not like rock and roll, that funny hand gesture. And since you see all those different bodies like kind of intercourse with each other, it's because there's a division in Tibetan culture that they worship sexual intercourse. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm going to combine it with my creation, so that therefore I come out this alien kind of looking creature. So here you can see I applied this color tone with layer mode and overlay. The reason I don't use color layer mode is because I want to control my shadow and color in the same time. So I use overlay to do it. In this layer, I just crop out the fire flame section area and paint it with actual color for the background. And basically here I just using the 3 base tone to paint in my character. For the darker area, I use slightly red, and the mid-tone kind of grayish pink, and the light tone is very cold blue. So you actually want the skin color like cold against warm and warm against cold, according to different lighting volume. So here I give it a sun or a moon in the background to symbol the god status of itself. And this I just painted with true color with layer in normal mode, and set brush mode in overlay and highlight to block in some yellow orange color to give it a glow like. For this spatial decoration shape that around this globe, I actually made this shape first and then create a brush. So after I draw the shape like this, I'm going to select it by just hit Control and out of this layer. Click on this layer right here. It will automatically select the layers for you. Then I go to Edit, Define Brush Preset. And there you go, that you will have a new brush that you made. Click OK. And now I have this brush right here. But you look at this brush, it's continuously, it doesn't change the direction where it goes. So let us go to Brush Presets or Brush Adjustment. You gotta go to Shape Dynamic and turn on the direction and angle jitter. And now you see it's following your direction, but then you got to adjust the spacing. So now you see I have this shape. Just perfectly smooth, follow the contour line I'm drawing. So for this layer, I set it into layer mode overlay and airbrush in some cyan color. For the reason because you want warm against cold. Again, create a new layer and set it layer mode in hard light. Reason I set in the hard light is because it will overlay even more of the bottom color. And here I just further detail it more in adding reflection light. So add some interesting line and sparkle particle dust, and I set the layer mode in hard light. So if you want your color and the lighting obvious shown, you need to set the layer mode in hard light instead of overlay. Because what happens if I set an overlay, it's just barely seen. And again, more hard light dust smoke. It's just a brush that I downloaded from online. It's called Sparkle. Well, okay, it's called Particle of Fractal Smoke. You can download it up online. I believe it just, Google search the name, it will come up. Nowadays, there are like tons of brushes you can download. So yeah, I want the fingers to be reddish, so I added some color with the layer property in hard light. Next one, how can we miss the highlights? So I'll just paint in with true color for the highlight. And next one, I want a cyan blue lighting, the glow from my character. So I added a new layer, set an overlay, and just airbrushed in some cyan blue. And yeah, certainly some area in the flame is like way too dark compared to the character in front. So I added true color. I created a new layer, adding true color. Just paint the background. So here's after, before, after, to pop out my character more. And again, in this case, I adding some light glow of orange, yellow, in soft light mode. Well, I can set an overlay, but overlay is like too strong for me, too strong for this color. But though I set it in soft light, I still feel the orange yellow is too strong. So add another layer, set it in color mode, and just paint in some grayish yellow. I'm gonna adding some foreground object. The next one is smoke. Smoke is super important when you want to distinguish the distance of an object. That the object that further away, especially the bottom, should be covered in smoke. So that's why I added smoke, and that instantly pop out or distinguish the front layer object and back layer object. And since the background it's this orange sun, and it should emit light through the gap in this character. So I had to create a layer in linear dodge and just airbrushing in some orange yellow. So make it looks like the sun is glowing from the back. I add another linear dodge layer to enhance my center eye, and then some reflection light on of the female as well. So since the overall image is pretty much finished, the base color, now I'm going to adjust the color and lighting. So in this one, I create a new layer and set an overlay, and to just airbrush in or darken the place that I feel it should be darkened. And for this one, it's a contrast between warm against cold, so cyan color needs to be pop out more against the pink flame. And yeah, the pink flame is like the color of it is way too different from the cyan color, so I wish it to be kind of affected by the cyan color, the flame. So I add some cyan color to gray, kind of gray out the pink flame. And here's just very slight experiment of color adjusting with the color mode that made everything to be a little bit grayish. Again, adding my foreground object. And this layer is actually the shadow of the little people, the little worshipper. So I painted those with true color. And of course, you cannot miss the glow, because glow will instantly pop the object that you want to show, that you want to present it. I have an overlay, airbrush some, and kind of like a lighter yellow or wider yellow. And I have some highlight to brush in around the character. Highlight will offer you the function to cover up the bottom color and lighting. The next one is just a color adjustment, brightness and contrast to enhance the brightness. And this one I bring overall down again because I feel the color doesn't integrate with each other good. It's way too different from cyan to pink, pure cyan to pure pink, or to too much yellow. So I add this highlight layer and apply a layer with purple. And only mask out the area that I think should be pop out more. And for the next experiment, I just Control Alt E plus Shift to flatten over all layer into one, create a new one layer, and then go to filter and blur and apply Gaussian blur and set the layer opacity and around 30 to 40, and layer mode and overlay. You can set it to soft light, depends on what you need. And at this point, I feel the overall lighting is way too heavy and dark, so I added brightness and contrast adjustment. Just bring down the contrast. And also bring down the hue and saturation. And the next one, I'm going to apply overall texture. I have this texture downloaded from cgtexture.com. So in the texture I already have color, this kind of Vermig's cold color already. So I set it in overlay, opacity in 40. Again, max out some area I feel it's needed. The area where close to the frame, image frame is way too dark. I feel I should add some more texture for it. So I just brush in some texture with texture brush. And next one, I just create another layer in color mode and adding some gray to bring down the area I feel should be desaturated. And this one highlights just darken the area that I feel it should be darkened to pop up my main subject, which is around the head or a bunch of fingers. And yeah, I feel the overall image probably need to be even darker to pop out the center. So I just added a solid black layer and mask out my center. And this one I just create a new layer and set it highlight and adding some reflection light, reddish pink. So since my center is the focus, I need it to be even more complicated and adding more details to push up more. So this layer just adds some more detail. This one is just the logo at a time for the contest. So yeah, and back then I don't like saturated color, so I just even desaturated the overall saturation and hue adjustment. So I go into color balance to trying to bring every color all together and just do some more experiment to see if I can reach a more decent result or not. So here's I do it. I bring up the yellow in the midtone, and for the highlights, I bring up the against a color from yellow, which is blue. I do not touch the shadow because I don't find the shadow is good for color balance. I only touch middle and highlights, and middle and highlights should be a lot of times should be in different opposite color. For example, I have midtone in yellow and highlight in blue, which is the opposite color too. To It's the reason to enhance. Of course, this version here, the contrast is not enough, so here I just go to the brightness and contrast and strengthen the contrast and overall image. It right away pop out the everything. So I just add a vivid light in layer mode to brighten up my center. So here's another technique I use, just bring every layer into one new layer and then set the layer property in soft light. Of course, adjust the opacity. So for this layer, I just adding orange light that emits from the gap in between the shadow, the dark area, to define the shape more. So you wouldn't feel that the shadow is like totally dark. Adding emits light, it gives me more information. I further push it up more to paint it the midtone, because before it's really lack of midtone. Since I push out the contrast would decrease the midtone, so I need to hand paint it in with some midtone. Of course, because my center object is very important, so my center focus is very important, so I need to do that. And some highlight to highlight up the dark shadow of the lightest place, because the shadow area at the lightest place should be all dark. It should be affected as well by the light. So this one again, I flatten all layer to one, and I'm gonna just use brush property or brush mode. Set the brush property mode in. I think I set in highlight or dodge or color dodge, or even you can set it in overlay, and you just use a very bright cyan, kind of desaturated bright cyan, to highlight. And this one is set in soft light. Well, again, I flatten all layer into one layer and desaturate it to gray and set into soft light. The reason for that is I want to control my lighting. And this is like the final fix of the fingers. Final fix with some color dodge, gloom light applied. So for the very final, I'm going to add a final lighting adjustment by using level. So I'm going to bring up some light to slightly bring down my dark shadow. I find using level is better than using brightness and contrast because it enables you to view how much amount that you adjusted it. Like the graph right here, it's the white means the information that's stored. So that means the information in the lighter area is less, unless I adjust it to just about to right here in this line where the most graph meets with. So yeah, I would bring up the lighting. And of course for the darker tone, I would not touch it more because a lot of information is stored in the darker tone. If I adjust it over to the line where the bottom meets up, it's gonna to make it way too dark. Also means hide away the information of the image. So I just want to adjust to where it's like right here. So any question you can ask me. That's all. Enjoy.